5 years ago, he was a fisherman with a thriving business, but a tsunami washed away his boat and fishing equipment. Now Vaessen Pavandarasa sells fish he buys at the market in his village in East Sri Lanka. His house is much better than what he had before, but his income is just half of what he earned when disaster struck.
Since the tsunami, it is harder to find fish. You need a motorboat to go further into the sea. I don't have the money for that. To invest in a boat and fishing equipment is impossible for me. I can only buy a small portion of fish every day that I sell in my village.
Vaessen is one of 1.8 million people across the Indian Ocean who lost their homes and livelihoods to the tsunami. Hundreds of aid organizations flocked to the affected countries to help rebuild. But in their hurry, mistakes were made. Many houses remain empty because nobody wants or dares to live in them.
They built and gave us this house, but the concrete started cracking, so they built us a new house.
Zoa Refugee Care is one of few aid organizations who were not in a hurry. They stayed throughout Sri Lanka's civil war that ended this year to make sure aid was distributed fairly.
I think it was a huge challenge to spend such an enormous tsunami budget wisely, and we have observed indeed differences in how we treated the war-affected people and the tsunami-affected people. I think we can fairly state that.
Unfair distribution also created friction in the Indonesian province of Aceh, the worst-hit area. A tsunami aid watchdog says at least 10% of the money was misused.
It is important to really get the right data after a disaster strikes so some people don't get 2 houses or more and others get nothing. This is an important lesson to the world so a natural disaster will not turn into a social disaster.
This fishing boat right in the center of Banda Aceh symbolizes the enormous force of nature. It was the most devastating disaster in modern history. In Aceh, more than 170,000 people have died, and the amount of money and aid donated was unprecedented. Now, 5 years later, many mistakes have been made and lessons learned. But still, most survivors do live in better houses, and their trauma is slowly disappearing. 13-year-old Suprisa has managed to put the past behind her. She goes to middle school and wants to travel when she grows up. When I met her 5 years ago, she'd lost both her parents, her house, her school, and she was studying in a tent. Now she has new friends, and together they have overcome their fear of the sea.
I don't want to think about the tsunami anymore. I only want to think about my future. I don't want to drown in sadness.
The girls play in the sea every week as if nothing had ever happened. To them it seems unlikely that a tsunami will hit again. And if it does, they know now how to read the signs. The disaster 5 years ago has scarred their lives forever, but it hasn't taken away their joy. Vaessen, Al Jazeera, Aceh.